Hey guys, welcome back to Castlevania. This is the second part of the Let's Play. We're going to be spending the first half of this level, or first half of this episode, redoing that level that we ended up dying on last time. But thankfully, a big part of it will be new stuff that we didn't see last time. We will be moving on this time. But that does bring me to sort of, I mentioned I'd be cutting out whole, if I sort of just died over and over, that would be cut. So I guess I'll bring up briefly how I'm recording this. I'm sort of recording them in 20-minute bursts. And basically if a 20-minute burst if at the end of a 20-minute burst I'm still where we started, I'll just be cutting that footage basically. So this footage is you're always going to see progress in this series basically. Yeah, there were a couple of recording sessions cut out between the last episode and this one, so probably about 40 minutes to an hour of just working on this level. And of course, because there are breaks in between those, there's then some rustiness that comes along that doesn't that I need to get over each time. But thankfully, as I said, we will be making progress in this video. So I guess I'll go over some bits that I wanted to mention last time, but lost track of time because I ramble, because I'm an idiot. So the first thing I wanted to bring up is hearts. As you've probably spotted, hearts do not recover health in this game. They are ammunition for your sub-weapons. So every sub-weapon costs you 1 heart, apart from the stopwatch, which costs 5. And the small hearts enemies drop give you 1 heart, and the bigger hearts give you 5 hearts. Nice and simple. It's odd, obviously, because now in games the heart is universally used as a healing. It's health. But Castlevania doesn't do that. For the most part, there are some games that change it up. So the other thing is, how do we heal? Well, like that. We get meat from walls. You know, food as a healing item isn't uncommon in games, but food that's been stuck in the wall of a possessed devil castle, probably, you know, a little stranger, a little more odd. But the other big thing with the wall meat, I want to say, is that actually, for me, it makes some semblance of sense. You know, Simon's a barbarian. He finds meat and he just tuggers down on it. That makes a lot of sense. I messed up this boss fight here royally. I could absolutely have just been more heavily spamming that the holy water there. Didn't need to stop using the holy water to whip him. Just use the holy water. But seeing that where we got that double before we'd got anything there did remind me of another mechanic actually that I didn't realise was in the game until I actually ended up between recording sessions, not yet in our Let's Play, but slightly later. I looked up why do I keep getting sort of double items when I've got no sub-weapon? And it turns out if you use the sub-weapon to kill enemies, and I believe damaging bosses or damaging any enemy with multiple that takes multiple hits to kill. And I believe also candles do it, but 10 of those in a row, 10 of those actions with a sub-weapon in a row, means that the next candle you hit will always drop a double item. And repeat it again, you get the triple item, which I don't think we've seen yet in this Let's Play, but we will see relatively soon. But another thing from the last part that I don't want to say missed, but I didn't really get a chance to because I was introducing it and we were powering through the first couple of levels, is the fact that I mentioned more generally how I love the art design and the style and the setting and stuff, but the individual levels, how they sort of flow into each other. You know, sort of, we're outside the castle, then we're in the Great Hall entryway type thing. Then we're, you know, going off into sort of rising up the inner staircases into what almost looks like a desecrated chapel for the fight with the Medusa. With Medusa. And then sort of, you know, on the outer walls, the ramparts for the next level. Into, you know, sort of a tomb-looking place for the mummies, and then obviously falling down into these caves below the castle, and then sort of, you know, rising back up, taking a different entryway to that almost mausoleum-looking room that we fight the. I say mausoleum looking, I don't know how much it actually looks like a mausoleum. It's just that going back to it, that room layout looks a lot like one from Castlevania 3 that is definitively a mausoleum. So I guess I always think of it as a mausoleum, despite the fact it actually maybe isn't. That room from Castlevania 3, if you know which room I'm talking about, I don't want to spoil too much for a game that I've not even started recording yet. But that game, the mausoleum in that game is very distinct because it is the introduction of a massively important and massively beloved character in the series. And boy oh boy was I getting absolutely rocked by those Fleamen there, but blimey. But yeah, I just love how all of those sections and levels feel. They make complete sense within the castle. They make complete sense as a place that, you know, Dracula would have in his castle. But they also feel distinct and like well thought out, well designed levels. You know, if you showed me a screenshot from pretty much any level in this game, you could say, oh, that's this section, that's that section, but they also always feel completely cohesive and coherent with each other, and that's a big part of why I think this game's atmosphere works as well as it does. Sorry, I got lost in that soundtrack there, this creepy, I love this thing for this. I think this is the only stage in the game it's used for, which is a shame because it's got some great atmosphere in it. But yes, I don't know if I mentioned what I was doing with the recording. I'm hoping to have, before even the first part of this Let's Play goes up, I'm hoping to have at least up to Castlevania The Adventure, the first Game Boy game, recorded and in the bag before these start getting uploaded, just so that if anything does come up, I've got, you know, space to breathe and not have to worry about recording to get these all out in a time that I want them to get out. But it's also much easier for me to sort of record a whole thing, leave it and come back to it and go, oh, and then sort of, you know, do the recording. So if there are comments on this complaining, I'm not going to be able to do anything to fix that until a lot later in this series, so I apologise for that. But I think we are finally about to see the culmination here of my attempts at this level. Sorry, a little pause there. There was people talking in the house. I didn't want to just ignore them to play Castlevania. Because as much as I like Castlevania, you know, acknowledge your family tends to be good. Yes, okay, this is where the Frankenstein boss goes from frustrating and feeling borderline impossible to, oh, the dominant strategy might be too dominant. So, yes, we've got our first triple item. And it will make Frankenstein's monster and Igor... well, I was talking about not using the dominant strategy properly earlier. They can't move. The stun lock and the damage output is just optimal, right? This is the problem with... oh god, this bloody sound. Jesus Christ. But this is the problem when there is such a strong strategy, it sort of becomes... You almost just stop playing, the boss fight stops existing. But yeah, we are swiftly approaching the end of the castle. And this level is one where I think even the dominant strategy is not for the boss, at least. You still have to be paying attention and doing stuff, which is good because Medusa and Frankenstein's monster both, when you've got the correct sub-weapon and enough hearts to use it, just absolutely can become jokes, which is a little sad. But this boss certainly doesn't. Potentially, I think this boss might even be harder than Dracula himself. You can see me frantically checking every wall for meat. Oh, these enemies I quite like. They're nothing special, but they're kind of fun. Known as red or blood skeletons in subsequent games. They basically, you can't kill them. They just, reform after you destroy them. So it's less a case of just killing them and thinking, okay, I know they're going to come back in however many seconds it is. Where do I kill them that their positioning isn't going to completely fuck me when they, get back up and start walking around? One of the more infamous enemies in this game, Axe Knights. Throw axes at 2 different heights, have a lot of hit points. A big thing is that they you can just bully them. One of the big things, they will almost always be retreating from Simon. The only time they'll move towards you is if you're stationary or if you're walking away from them, they will approach you. So if you're just moving towards them, they'll still be throwing stuff, but they'll always be backing away, so you can control the pace of a fight. With it, you're pretty much always in control of how that fight's going to be paced, or the positioning you're going to be in of that fight, which is very helpful to bear in mind for the last section of this stage. The one annoying thing is obviously you do have to get, if you've not got the fully upgraded whip, which you won't do if you've died in this stage and had to go back there, you will have to get quite close to them, and they can get some quite strong hits in with those axes. Bearing in mind your axes can... their axes can be destroyed with the whip. I think this is a lot of the thing with Castlevania 1. You've got to understand how enemies work, and you've got to understand how your abilities interact with enemies. And it doesn't become easy, but it becomes manageable, right? It goes from this kind of frustrating, almost cryptic... this frustrating kind of cryptic game to, oh, there's actually a logic here, and it's all on how much I'm pushing or waiting and you know how well I'm using sub weapons or the whip, all you know, sort of just factoring in everything you can do and everything enemies can do to find out almost the solution to the puzzle of the enemies. And that's another thing that I absolutely love about this series. We got a double axe here, when we are not going to be using the axe for much longer. But this last section is one of the most infamous, and I think online, if you look at it, it will get praise and criticism in equal measure. Not this section here. When we go on to the next screen, you'll see what I'm talking about. This bit is actually fairly fun, and yeah. It's not overly complicated. One thing I haven't realised yet is actually the height you're at with those stairs. You can whip I forgot what that enemy's called. Bone pillar. That's what it's called. You can whip that bone pillar and not be in range of its and not be in range of its fireball. This is the way I was talking about, the infamous one. So you've just got to remember that you are in control of the pace of the fight with the Axe Knights. That you know, you'll always know where the where the Medusa heads are coming from. You've just got to stay focused, stay calm, which is easier said than done when you've got a bunch of Medusa heads and an Axe Knight. But although you've got all these complicated paths of where, you know, they could be going, you've got to just, you know, you are in control of where the Axe Knight's going to be, and you can control where... Not control, but you can certainly account for where the Medusa heads are going to be coming from. Yeah, and this is where I think this is where I figured out, or remembered the the sub-weapon drops are tied to enemies killed with sub-weapons, or the numeral double effect. It doesn't matter how many double effect crosses I've got if I'm completely messing up the pattern of the Axe Knight and the Medusas. Yeah, this is the thing about classic Castlevania. It is as much a test of your planning and your ability to stay cool under pressure as it... This is where I realise that thing about the bone pillars not being in range to hit you. But it's as much of a test as your ability to plan and stay cool under pressure as it is a test of your reactions and endurance. Yeah, if you look at older videos on the internet, that even someone who, like the AVGN, who sort of is one of the most popular reviewers, or certainly was back in the day one of the most popular reviewers, that gets a lot of that room gets a lot of criticism. But I actually find it to be a well designed and thoughtful challenge. Anyway, there's me double saving to make sure I've definitely saved, and that'll do it for this part of the Let's Play. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope to see you again for part 3.